Good afternoon and welcome to the 864 Governance, Administration and Finance Committee. We don't have any apologies today. We have full committee members and we also welcome Councillor Gates and Councillor Tozer. I don't believe, so no leave of absence. Confirmation of minutes. Is there someone who's happy to move? Councillor Fowler, and second Councillor Taylor. Any questions about the minutes? Rising for the minutes? No? Okay, all in favour? Great, thank you. No conflicts of interest declarations for anyone? Okay, we'll just have a look at the items. I'll unstar 5.1 for a small admin matter. Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to unstar 6.4, please.
6.4, okay. Any others? No, okay. So we'll move 6.3. Councillor Wilkinson moving 6.3 and Councillor Fowler seconding. All in favour? Great, thank you. So we'll just go to the forward planning schedule. Just a minor detail, which I'm sorry I didn't pick up earlier, but just to, it dates all the dates for 2025. So if we can just update that, so it's 2026. And the item regarding the promotion of community services, we've identified that that's probably something that can just be explained in email to councillors, so I'm happy to remove that one at the moment. Okay. Any other questions about the committee forward planning schedule? So I think we can just note it as is, but those minor amendments will be made. Okay. Mover for that, Councillor Martin, seconded Councillor Taylor, all in favour? Great, thank you. And so we're on to the Audit and Risk Committee. We welcome Mr. Walker, who's here to represent the Audit and Risk Committee. Do we have any questions for Mr. Walker? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Could I please just ask when is it expected that the Audit and Risk Committee will complete the review of the governance frameworks for the controlled entities?
Through you, Chair, the Audit and Risk Committee is receiving an internal audit on controlled entity governance and oversight mechanisms at their next meeting, which would be February, after which they'll be in a better position to inform discussions about controlled entity governance through the members. In addition, we are collaborating tightly with the other review that is going on to ensure that there's no overlap of scope and they're complementary reviews. So that will occur at the 27th of February Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Maybe 23rd, let me clarify.
Thank you. It was that reason, I guess, the fact that we are actually undertaking a review of the controlled entities, and it'd be great to avoid any information not being provided before we made decisions if there were some suggestions from the Audit and Risk Committee on the governance side of things.
Through the chair, I'll also defer to Paul on this. However, we are intending to not have duplicate or overlapping findings, and we are not assessing the same things. So we have been collaborating with Paul and the control entities team to ensure that the reviews are complementary and not overlapping. Paul, you have anything further to add to that?
Through the chair, no. I think we've met on 2 occasions already, and with Ernst & Young and Matthew and the team, and subsequent to that,
You've been on what, sorry?
We've met with the team doing the internal audit review twice already, and post that report being published, we'll also do the same prior to coming to Council in NTEC.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got 2 more questions. So just some clarity around the governance review that's happening with the Audit and Risk Committee. Is it simply the review of the beneficial enterprise and controlled entities policy, that we're looking at for February? And is it the Controlled Entities Board charters that are also being looked at?
Through the chair, no, we are not assessing the charters, and this is where the difference in scope lies. We are assessing oversight and governance mechanisms that are mostly internal controls run by the Controlled Entities Unit. How do we oversee performance? How do we make sure that it's aligned with council objectives and those kind of controls? Whereas the interim review is assessing their performance and structure and function, right? So that's how that we're managing the scope. So the audit that we're doing is about oversight controls internal to council.
And if I can add, a part of that is the Audit and Risk Committee have been requested to look at it through the lens of the oversight of councillors. And with that, they are considering the SFA, so the agreements. It may not be the charter, but they are looking at the agreements and seeing, is there something that should more be in there or clearer in there so that councillors have an experience of having the oversight and engagement that they'd like to have.
Thank you, Chair. And I just had one final question while we do have Mr. Walker in the room. Can I just ask, in regards to the controlled entities, who is ultimately responsible for any non-compliance with regulatory timeframes or reporting requirements to the Auditor General and Treasurer? Is it council or is it the controlled entities themselves?
Through the chair, I will have to take this one on notice. I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
So we can take that one.
That would be great. I just, from my governance perspective, I was just ensuring that we feel confident if it is council's responsibility on any non-compliance, that we're confident of what is required and when it's required.
I think through the chair, yeah, I think it's going to be an it depends answer. Depends on what the topic is and what piece of legislation and where decision authority has been vested. And I think that it might be a relatively complex answer depending on the type of legislation. So that's why I don't want to speak without and misspeak on that topic.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just on that, Councillor Wilkinson and myself as the councillor reps have informed the external independent audit and risk committee members of queries that have come up within council in terms of our ability to engage and controlled entities. But if there is anything specific, well, you could ask us, or you're welcome to add it in a note here so that the Audit and Risk have it formally. But with that, I will ask if you'd like to move the item, Councillor Fowler.
I think Mr. Callender just.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Callender.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add, given some of the questions today and given the ongoing interim entity review, more than happy between now and the next 4 weeks to keep feeding those questions through to us if you have them. This is a great opportunity for us to set up the next 12 months for the review, and we've already received some fantastic feedback from councillors, but I would encourage, if there are any other things that do concern you currently, please just feed them through to the team, through myself, and we'll make sure they're addressed as part of that review as well.
Happy to move the item, Chair.
Seconder, Councillor Wilkinson. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Fowler? All in favour? Carried. Unanimous. The next item, 6.2, is LGID, relating to the infrastructure designation request through to the state government. Are we having a presenter come in on that?
Through the chair, yes, we are. We'll just get them.
Okay. Does any questions on this matter? There isn't a formal presentation, I don't believe.
There isn't one?
Is there a formal presentation? No.
No, okay. I can just ask my questions if that's
Yeah.
all right.
Yes. Go ahead, Councillor Tozer.
So my question was just about the local government infrastructure designation process. It occurs to me that we would normally submit an LGID application per site, but it looks like we're doing this kind of collaborative, hey, these are all depots, we're going to do this all at once. Can you talk us through what's been decided there? That's how I read the report anyway.
Yeah, through the chair. Look, I think given the nature of the project, that this is an acceptable method that Gemma Barundere, who's handled all the pre-negotiations with the state up to this point,
Yes.
has confirmed that this is acceptable to do it in this manner.
Right. So we've actually already engaged with the state and they've said they've recommended we do this.
That this is an acceptable method.
So there was a distinct change in our approach to these sorts of processes not that long ago, and I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I believe I was informed that the Mudgebar Cemetery was one of the first LGID exercises, and previously to that we used to just lodge normal development applications. Do you have any background on the history of that and the likelihood of success? And
Look, through the chair, I'm not exactly across the Mudgebar example. I know that the LGID process is acceptable for significant projects, and it's often just the smoothest, most streamlined manner to get to the outcome that we need as a city.
right.
So it has been there's been a few of them recently. We've talked about it with Greenheart.
Yep.
This is another example, and things like the ARC facility, for example, the LGID process seems to support quite well, and in discussions with the state, it's the best and most useful approach that we've been given advice from the state about.
Okay. All right. That's insight.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just in regards to timing, once an LGID is actually made and gazetted, will a future amendment to the new planning scheme be required, or timing-wise, would that align just for inclusion in the new planning scheme under development?
Through the chair, I'd probably have to take that one on notice and just talk to our planning people with the city plan about that specifically. The timing that we've included in here has been verified, and we've consulted that with our planning scheme folk. I don't expect there are any issues, but I'd have to actually seek a better answer.
Because in the report it states that it would be an amendment, but just because we're close to a new planning scheme was mainly the point. And one final quick one, Chair, is just in the timing section on page 36. It states that the submission was made in December and the notification period closes in January, and I'm assuming these dates are incorrect based on this report being deferred from the previous GAF meeting, but maybe they need to be amended with some updated dates.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. That is an amendment that we need to make, and it was based on it being deferred at last GAF.
Thank you.
Can I also just pass on my thanks to Councillor Curtis for picking up a typo with our address for the Coomba Bar facility. Thank you for that. That will be tidied up and amended prior to submission.
And just to note, I did ask whether the relevant divisional councillors had been engaged and consulted on this report prior to it coming here. I've now got some feedback on that. I believe that Councillor Marshall may be looking at something in one that's relevant to his division, but he'll raise that at full council meeting rather than here. Any other questions? Councillor Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Just a query on the stakeholder engagement timing around when that would occur, because just obviously we've got the local government infrastructure plan amendment consultation running, I think now until March. So just trying to understand if there'll be confusion around the differences in the community.
Sure, through the chair. So the stakeholder engagement process starts on the day of submission to state. So it'll start on the 19th once it's submitted, and it's a minimum of 20 business days from that period of time. So they'll all commence simultaneously for all sites from that date.
And will they'll be separate have your says, so they'll be, in terms of the public consultation, will it appear on have your say as well as the LGIP amendment?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Will it be a community consultation brought up around the Have Your Say portal? Is that where this stakeholder engagement, or is this more localised engagement?
No, through the chair. Yeah, definitely a more localised approach. So it'll be a letterbox drop within the designated area, a signature sign display at the site, and an online update.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. And just while I have the opportunity to clarify the mapping, so as it says it's confined within the existing lot, but the lot seems to cover like that whole Shelter Road area. But is it, my read of it was that we weren't going to be moving outside the bounds of the depots that already exist there. So they wouldn't be changed to, say, other leaseholds that were within that lot.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, that's correct. So just within the existing lot.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor O'Neill, seconded Councillor Wilkinson. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor O'Neill? No? All in favour? Great, thank you. We now go to the monthly reports, and we did start October, but I did have a matter which is kind of general in nature to both, so I'm happy to address it in the November report. So I had a query and had a chat with the CFO about having these reports be clearing in communicate, just so that we can understand them in the broader context rather than just in that month, like how does it relate to a broader context. So particularly related to the rates and water age receivables comparison. If you look at it on page 91 in November, and then you also look at it in the October report, it can look alarming, but that's only because it's being done as a dollar value. It's not relating to the fact that rates as a total have gone up. So my requests are that we put in kind of as a comparison figure as a percentage of rates as well as a dollar figure. So it's not an alarming figure. It looks like a huge amount, but actually it's the same percentage when you look at it from year to year from a rates perspective. And then I had another question about the OSRs and how we communicate that. So maybe if the CFO would like to speak to that.
Sure, thank you, Chair. So the suggestion's been made that we incorporate the budget plus the 5-year average OSR. So at the moment, the 5-year average is a negative 2.8%. Our current budget for this financial year is to achieve a 1% operating surplus ratio, and then our long-term financial forecast builds on that for us to achieve a benchmark 0 or greater than 0 5-year average within a few years' time.
So I'm not sure if, Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Chair. I guess just touching on that, just for anyone who has read the report, who might be watching at home, given that you've clearly indicated that we're trying to reach a 1%, but our actual year-to-date is sitting at 8%. Do you want to just give a bit of clarity around that, just for anyone who's, like I said, watching?
Sure. Through the Chair. So it will peak and trough depending on when we receive our rates revenue. So our rates revenue for general rates is received in July and August, and then January, February. So you'll see spikes for when we're receiving the majority of our revenue throughout those periods. Also, the phasing of the budget in relation to our operating expenses will vary throughout the year, which will also have an impact on the operating surplus ratio. So that's why we track our actual result to our budget to make sure that we're landing to where we need to be. But there's always nuances in the phasing of our budget.
Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Chair. And through you, I just had a few questions on the November financials after reviewing October financials as well, just to help ensure we fully understand the movements in the month. Main concern is just the capital program overspend. So in the report, am I correct that it shows the capital works program is 43 million over budget year to date? And could we outline what proportion of that is overspend is expected to self-correct through timing, or what proportion reflects genuine cost pressures?
What page are you on, Councillor Bella?
Well, it was... I'll have to go back and find it, sorry. Thank you.
Through the chair, yeah, I've got the Executive General Manager of Infrastructure to speak to particulars. But in the month of November, we had the ARC land purchase, which was a major capital expense item, which was phased differently in our budget. And we also had the purchase of Kristen's Road, which was one of the M1 exits. But if there's a particular question, I can refer to the EGM infrastructure.
So I guess the particular question is just an explanation around the capital overspend in November, and do we expect that to self-correct itself, or do we feel like this is going to be a trend we're going to see with capital for the rest of the financial year?
Yeah, through the chair, no, we are now forecasting to 737 million for infrastructure Gold Coast capital. So in terms of my department's capital program, we did have that year-to-date variance because we had quite a large acquisition cost for the parcel at exit 45. But we've effectively, now with our forecasting, we're quite confident that we'll come in on the 737, and we'll be able to show when you see the report come through for December, and we're obviously now moving into January numbers internally, we can actually see some of that better alignment year-to-date.
Chair, just on that, without going into any confidential details, my understanding was that acquisition we were talking about, it in that report it had clearly distinguished where the funds were coming from. Can I confirm that the funds did come from those reserves that were suggested in the report?
Through the chair, yes, they did, but the cash phasing, I guess, from where those funds were taken at the time of budget versus how they were actually reallocated for that large transaction. So it's really a timing, it's a phasing issue that's created the anomaly in the year-to-dates rather than a budget shortfall for the acquisition of that particular property.
Councillor Gates.
Thanks very much, Chair.
You're finished, Councillor Fowler?
That's okay.
Thanks.
It's just about that. Can you please, through the Chair, just explain to me, the land purchase was not something that had been anticipated. It happened fairly quickly. So with the forecast of that is current, does that mean that some capital works will fall away from the program in order to catch up with the expenditure on the land?
Through the chair, the acquisition was actually, there was some savings that we identified in the report for that particular acquisition, and some of those were associated with HODA. There was some funding freed up. There was some work that wasn't completed, I think, in the building services area. And there was an unallocated strategic acquisition budget, which was also used for a portion. So the acquisition, whilst it wasn't planned, effectively we have used some of those identified savings. And as you know, with capital, Councillor Gates, there's a lot of variability and reforecasting and effectively a lot of movement month to month. But we haven't actively had to defer projects to allow for that acquisition. We were able to identify that in the report that came to council.
I'm sorry, I should remember because it was in Division 3, but thank you for the explanation.
Is that a follow-on? Councillor Tozer?
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. On page 77, Karen, there's just a little asterisk under Capital Works Program expenditure that says Capital Works Program is inclusive of both capital and operating costs. Kind of made the assumption that means the operating cost relating to that capital, not the operating expenses that are in the table above. Have I read that correctly?
Through the chair, yes. So the operating expenses that are operating under accounting standards are included in the total capital works program. So if you're looking at the graph, which is the TOTEX capital, that includes operating expenditure as well.
So I don't have a graph. I've only got a table, but I'm seeing the $43 million overspend in the capital works, which has been referred to by Councillor Fowler. I'm assuming that does that include the $30 million overspend in operating expenditure that's in the few rows above, or not?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct, because this is the total capital program, which is inclusive of an operating component of a capital program. It won't account for the full overspend that's sitting in operating expenses. Partial of it will be operating, and then some of it will be capital.
Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead. I'm thinking that was my question.
Just in regards to that TOTEX figure, I think, Michael, we mentioned the 737 on CapEx, but if we're looking at TOTEX, I think the budget was around just over one, year to date. Last year's year actual was 983. So just wondering if the TOTEX, we are still forecasting to hit that same TOTEX revised budget, or if there's going to be a reforecast on that TOTEX budget full year.
Through the chair, so Infrastructure Gold Coast OPEX $628 million annual budget. So we are forecasting $628 million for OPEX. Yeah. There's some interesting variances year to date. So one of those variances unfavourable to date is around $6.2 million for the beach restoration program. So obviously we are progressing with those works, but we have been advised that we'll have a positive outcome with DRFA funding. So I'm hopeful that next month we'll have some formal advice and we'll be able to negate that. There are some other variances which we're managing through. Primarily, most of the variances are actually in the infrastructure maintenance team, and we've been working with the infrastructure maintenance team to bring back expenditure so they're on track, and they've already made some very positive changes in trends, because as you can imagine, as we went into the beginning of the financial year, we had some severe weather events and there was quite a bit of reactive maintenance, which has now started to plateau. So in summary, we're looking at bringing capital back in to approved budget and OPEX back to approved budget.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, through to the CFO. Do we currently have sufficient cash on hand to meet all our liabilities when they fall due? Because am I correct that in November report it shows we have minus $34.3 million in unconstrained cash? Are we tracking with budget forecast on that, or is this an area of concern?
Through the chair, this is the normal cycle of cash that we see, because as you're aware, the January rate run will see a large amount of cash come in. It is within our forecast, and we're still expecting to land at our end of financial year position for our cash balance, which is the $446 million.
Thank you. And just through you, Chair, two last ones. Our debt servicing capacity, I see, has increased to 3. So I understand the target in Tier 2 is 1 to 4. However, I do recall in our budget workshop we discussed that 3 is really the goal, the threshold. Do we have any concerns with increased borrowings going beyond the 3?
Through the chair, once again, this is a phasing thing and a budget alignment. As a result of the operating surplus that was recorded for, or the operating deficit that was recorded for the December month end, that saw the leverage ratio increase. Provided that we do come within budget for our operating surplus result, the leverage will land at the 2.6, which is the budgeted end of year result.
Okay, thank you. And one final question, Chair. I'm not sure who this should be directed to, but I just wanted to get some understanding why we applied for a grant for the proposed Lyric Theatre when the project hasn't yet been endorsed by Council. So I'm not sure who that would be directed to, if it's this team or if it's a different team. But I found that stood out to me as a decision that was made without a council resolution.
Through the chair, I have to take that question on notice.
Yeah, and I think the follow-on question from that, here we've got the CEO, he can answer it. I suppose the other question, Mr. CEO, is if we were to receive the grant and be successful, but we aren't pursuing it, we just don't accept it?
Hello, councillors. Good afternoon. I might just get you to repeat the question for me, if that's okay.
No problem at all. Just in the November financials, that's what we're reviewing just at the moment, and I just noticed in the report that was prepared for council that there was a $50 million grant applied for by the city for the Lyric Theatre. Yep. So my question was just understanding why we applied for a grant for a proposed Lyric Theatre when the project hasn't yet been endorsed by council.
Sure. So it's not uncommon for council to seek grants for proposals. Any grant application that we would have made would have been subject to a council resolution. I think given that the Lyric has been discussed, there's a version of what it may or may not look like out the back there. I think the thinking at the time was any proposal that comes to council should be done on the basis of answering a very simple question: are you likely to get support from the state government? So that's why that's been done. It would have been the grant application would have been subject to a council resolution, and it will have been made very clear that a final decision on the project has not been made by council.
Oh, good. Any other questions on this item? No. Okay. Did we accept 6.3? Have we done that one already? We have. Okay, good. 6.4, do I have a mover for the item? Councillor Martin, seconder, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Martin, do you wish to speak to it?
Just to say thank you for the updated report and for answering those queries. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. So I have requested those minor amendments, which I think will help reading the report in a broader context. And if there's anything that you think can enhance the report for your reading of it, you're very welcome to send that through to the EGM and CFO. Thank you. All in favour? Great. Cheers. Okay, so we're now on to the artificial intelligence update. We have a presentation on that. I don't believe this item needs to be enclosed, and I had that conversation with the CEO and relevant acting EGM yesterday, and they agreed. So I think we can have this presentation in open. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, councillors and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on the city's artificial intelligence project. My name is Sean O'Connor and I'm the project manager for the Amplify AI project. Today I'll summarise what we've achieved so far this financial year, note how we're managing AI responsibly, and outline some of the next steps in our journey to make the city a leader in the use of artificial intelligence. So since the report has been circulated, the city has updated its signature actions to include 2 specifically related to AI. These are Signature Action 13. We will roll out a single enterprise system and implement a comprehensive AI program to enable innovation and deliver positive benefits for the community and employees. And Signature Action 14. All employees will have access to AI to enhance consistent, efficient and high quality work. So I'll speak to those as we work through our new layered approach. In 2024, Council endorsed the city's first AI strategy, establishing a clear direction for safe and value-driven AI adoption. In July 2025, City launched the Amplify AI project designed to execute a number of key aspects of the strategy, including the establishment of the Centre of Excellence, commencement of our own development capability to build out AI use cases, production of core governance artefacts, and rollout of Copilot as our generative AI tool of choice for all users. As part of rollout for City, we've adopted a layered AI framework, which is going to guide us through 4 ambitious layers of AI activity, from an AI-enabled workforce right up to city-level innovations. The layered model you can see includes Layer 4, a user-generated AI. That's about empowering our staff with AI tools to boost productivity and enable safe use of AI. A Layer 3 application layer, AI-enabled systems. It's modernising our core enterprise systems to provide reliable data foundations for AI. Layer 2, organisational AI solutions. These are intelligent agents and automation, developing these targeted AI agents, which is software that can automate or assist in specific business processes. And these are to solve real business problems at City. And Layer 1 are our citywide signature projects and partnerships. These are about pursuing bold, high-impact AI projects for the community in partnership with industry to showcase innovation and public value. I'll briefly talk through each of these layers and our progress to date, noting that the update is focused on progress against Layer 4, our user-generated AI, and Layer 2, our organisational AI solutions. So Layer 4 is fundamentally about people and embedding Gen AI in our everyday work. It's now a signature action, and the project has made a good start against this already. Our recommended Gen AI tool is Microsoft Copilot, and this was identified for City because it natively integrates with the Microsoft technologies we already use, and it provides enterprise-grade security and operates in our work boundary, meaning that prompts and City artifacts that don't leave our protected environment. We have 2 versions of Copilot at City. The main difference between the two is the fully licensed version has access and reasons over all artifacts, Teams chats, documents and emails in our work context automatically. Late last year, we deployed Copilot Chat to 4,900 City staff. Copilot Chat's still a very powerful generative AI tool that you can add documents to explicitly and safely query work data, and it uses the latest models from OpenAI. In addition, we increased our fully licensed versions of Copilot 365 to 1,000 staff, including counsellors and their support staff. So since the Amplify AI project has commenced, we've been very busy training City staff and users of the new tools. We've provided all City virtual training on Copilot Chat at launch. We've done in-person leadership training to yourselves, counsellors, to ELT and to a number of GMs and managers. Again, in person, we've conducted a number of role-specific workshops to focus staff on how to use Copilot in their context. So we've done that with representatives from legal, marketing and comms, procurement, and business support functions. We've commenced monthly updates and live tutorials from Microsoft on new features available in Copilot because it changes so frequently. We've run monthly drop-in sessions to focus staff on how others are using it and getting value from the tools. And we've also pushed some fun engagement activities like our 12 Days of Copilot Christmas campaign to help demystify the technology for users and get them thinking laterally about how they can use AI. We've stood up our artificial intelligence site. We've created an AI Learn Hub course that talks to the City's use of Gen AI. That's had nearing 500 voluntary enrolments. And we've got an active Viva Engage community where City staff post updates and questions, and we have our project team answering and providing new updates as well. With respect to AI safety, every training session contains a 15-minute overview of the responsible use of AI guidelines, covering how to use public tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini safely. maintaining privacy and security, keeping human in the loop for any decisions, making staff aware of their accountability in the use of AI and being transparent in its use as well, and notifying staff about potential disclosure risks. It's early days, but I think we're seeing some really good consumption figures, particularly with our fully licensed users. We're above average in our AI adoption scoring that Microsoft tracks. We're at roughly 16,500 AI interactions per week and 1,200 hours of meetings summarised in the last month. So some good usage there. So that's a summary of what we've been up to in terms of our Layer 4 empowered workforce. With respect to Layer 3, AI is only as good as the data and the systems behind it. As it's proposed as a new signature action, there'll be more information coming out about this approach to this layer soon. Layer 2 is all about how we're going to use intelligent agents and automation to address high-impact, problem-led AI use cases, and ones that are going to result in measurable time savings, cost reduction, service uplift, or risk reduction. Since the last update, we're well on our way to establishing our AI Centre of Excellence. We've developed design documents for our Centre of Excellence that propose how we prioritise use cases through our city value drivers of experience, productivity, risk and growth. We are working our new agent projects through the development lifecycle that includes the AI risk management framework, and this document is currently in draft and soon to be presented to the Audit and Risk Committee. We've stood up a small development team of a couple of developers, and they're providing our own delivery capability for agents. And we have a couple of agents in the testing phase. We've got a correspondence builder that's applicable to many roles in the city, and that's going to reduce drafting effort and improve the consistency of official comms. And we've also got a fine appeal review agent that's actually shifted to a parking knowledge assistant to support faster, better determinations. We're looking at how we can provide more generic agents, as many of the 30 plus use cases and calls for agents have similar functions such as drafting, review and analysis, and we're looking at how we can turn these into kind of repeatable agents so we can turn these around quicker and get them into the hands of users quicker. While I've talked about a couple of progress agents that we're currently working on, there's also a need for more specialised solutions for use cases in many areas of the city, including asset maintenance and the infrastructure space. And these are high-value use cases where we may work with partners to develop solutions. The COE envisages multiple coordinated streams alongside city development teams and under a single governance structure. Our Layer 1 focuses on high-impact signature AI initiatives that are highly visible and have the potential to be transformative at a city scale. We're currently in the planning phase for these Layer 1 signature projects and partnerships. Next steps for us are in our Layer 4, we're continuing our AI training and that digital capability uplift for staff, consistent with Signature Action 14. We're going to extend more targeted sessions through 2026, have more practical and role-based training, and increase capabilities for some city power users and experts within safe guardrails. For Layer 3, we're going to support the planning exercises consistent with Signature Action 13. Layer 2, we're looking at prioritising 5 to 10 high-value use cases from this month. We'll continue planning activity around signature actions called out in Layer 1, and we're going to update the AI strategy in line with our new vision for AI. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that presentation. I might just kick off questions. I've got one around our privacy, and So when we have that opportunity to use Copilot and we choose work or web, it occurs to me it's a little bit too easy for human error to accidentally click on web instead of work. And I have done that before, and then I realised, oh, I meant to be in work. And I hadn't released or shared any confidential information, but I thought it's a bit easy for human error. Have you got any comment on that?
Through the chair. So Microsoft have actually updated their enterprise data protection to offer the same level of protection for work and web. And we've also in City implemented within Copilot that anything sensitive or protected, Copilot can't reason over. So it will not, I mean, you can get around that by pasting sections, but if you inadvertently put a document in, it won't allow you to do that.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much. That gives me peace of mind. Any questions for Mr. O'Connor? Councillor Tozer?
I'm on page 115 of the report, and I think it's in your presentation. It was layer 2, and it talks about 30 use cases identified and 2 AI agents in testing. One's correspondence builder, and one's fine appeal review and responses. I'm trying to get my head around that. You know, we already have these human-made template responses to these sorts of things, and I'm just trying to establish in my head the value of utilising AI for something that really intelligent people in our organisation are already doing. Help me understand that.
Through the chair, that's a really good point. And when we look at the particular fines appeal that you've mentioned, in development, the City clients determined that the response piece wasn't of great value to them, and we have pivoted to build an agent out to do help in the determination piece, and that's about making sure that we can capture some of that codified City knowledge and be able to provide it to more junior staff.
Right. So part 2 of my question actually relates to an incident that occurred yesterday. We had a Mudgeeraba Police Community Consultative Committee, and I took minutes as the luddite that I am. And when I got in the next day, my team said, "Oh, we do this Copilot thing, and we could just record that, and then they could do the minutes for you." Like, I didn't even think of it, which is obviously something that I'm obviously missing the boat when it comes to AI, because that's in the staff in my office know how to do it apparently. To what extent is that sort of record keeping of meetings already occurring? And part 2 is when Copilot does that form a public record under the Public Records Act, or is the amended version that we would review the public record? What is the public record and the obligations there when that happens?
Through the chair, to address your first question, Councillor, I'll address the second question first on the public record.
Yep. You can go whatever order you like. I'm okay. Whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Anything that you put into Microsoft Copilot should be thought of as an email or a Teams chat or the like. So anything can be searchable and discovered.
Right. What does that mean? Like, I appreciate discovered, but go ahead.
Hey, hello again, everyone. So I'll have a go with the second question first. So, just like in if you took draft notes, if something is deliberative in nature, which means it's still in train, it's still being thought of, it would be considered as a draft. Now, there are specific cutouts or carve-outs in the RTI legislation, right to information legislation across all jurisdictions about draft information. So that would be deemed in draft. But those carve-outs are not exclusive. There are circumstances around which drafts can be included. But for the purposes of this conversation, to keep it as simple as possible, an AI-generated set of notes created in a meeting would be considered draft, and then the draft principles of the Act would apply. The second point I would make is that what we're teaching our staff. And
before you go on, when you say the draft principles of the Act would apply, you mean the draft principles of the Public Records Act?
That's right. Cool. So the way the Public Records Act treats draft documentation would apply to that because it hasn't been finalised, right? So in some cases it would be included, in others it wouldn't. It just depends on the nature of the claim. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is what we're teaching our staff and what we're trying to remind everything is 3 basic rules. So let's take that meeting example. The first is we need to tell people that we're using AI in the creation of those minutes. The second thing is if those minutes seek to reference something, whatever they are, we need to be triple checking those references because we don't know where it's going to go out and get it. And then the third thing we're saying is you need to be adding value to those minutes. So it's not just accept them as is, it's read them, check them, and then seek to add value. They're the 3 basic principles that we're using. I think the officers already indicated that it's being used extensively inside the city, but we are seeking to ensure those rules are applying. Telling people we're using them, checking the references and making sure we're adding value at the end. And those 3 things are really solid rules of thumb for all of us when we're using AI because we've got to be very honest, particularly in the number 1, about telling people that AI is being used.
Is it a standard statement that we as representatives of the council should be making when we are using... I haven't started using Copilot to record meeting minutes. Again, Luddite. But evidently people are doing that. Is there a standard format we should...
So generally speaking, any meeting held inside the city, whether it be external or internal, we are telling people because you are recording it for the purposes of taking the minutes, and then you're using AI. So it is a general solid rule of thumb that you should be telling people that you are using the tools, and we certainly do.
And it's simple as saying, hey, I'm using Copilot to record this.
I was at a meeting recently, I don't mind saying, with my GP, and he said to me, I'm using AI to record this and take notes for the purposes of the file.
My GP did the same.
And that's exactly what we said, and that's the basic principle that we should be applying.
Well, I mean, my doctor initially asked me to sign some sort of document acknowledging it. I'm pretty sure that's not the case right now, but for us, if we're going to use this stuff, we just have to let people know, and that's sufficient. We're meeting our obligations under relevant legislation if we do that.
Through you to the chair, it's probably not a bad idea for us to get you some standardised some standardised comms that you can use for your meetings. We'd be happy to do that, to take that on board. Similar to what we do if we have a town hall meeting, councillor, and we say at the start, the first slide usually says this meeting's being recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, let us know. So that kind of thing, we can do that, Chair, if you're comfortable with that.
Thank you. I've got a follow-up question. I'll see if Councillor Tozer's got any further questions.
So my last question was, and going through the presentation, the bullet points kind of used what I'd describe as relatively general general phrases, and it would help me to understand more practically some case studies of where these sort of things are turning into actual real ideas. And I think a future report probably should capture that more specifically. Statements like high impact citywide AI opportunities delivered with strategic technology partners, showcases leadership and public value. Like, these are what you'd kind of expect in a PowerPoint presentation, and I get it. But for us to be able to really explain to the ratepayer why this is important, practical examples like the one I've just given you. There was a police meeting. I took minutes, and that's how I used AI. Those sort of things. That's a very simple example, but I'm getting the feel that you're embarking on a number of much more complex projects and helping us justify this resource-intensive process to ratepayers would be easier with more specific case studies about how it's being applied.
I think we will see those. So in February, they're looking at narrowing the 30-plus initiatives which were proposed to 5 or 10, and I would expect that those 5 or 10 initiatives would then form part of a future report.
Correct. So that's correct. And what I would also say to councillors is I'd like you to be thinking about this in the context of problems rather than opportunities. What are the problems that we can use AI to help us solve? And, from the training that I've done, you can use AI pretty much everywhere. What we're going to go away and do is do some really good problem definition about what are some of the problems that we've got in the city. A process is taking too long, or a process is inaccurate, a process is expensive, and we're going to really do a lot of hardcore problem definition over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then we'll be in a position to narrow those 30 down to say what are the gnarliest problems we can solve with AI to give us the best possible outcome possible and return on investment.
Okay, so if AI can solve our homeless and e-bike problems, that'll be excellent. Thank you. On that informing people or telling people, and I think it's very clear when you're recording someone, but I wonder whether councillors could expect when reports come to council. We haven't had a report yet that has stated AI has been used to formulate this report. I assume AI has been used to formulate reports. Do you think that's something that should be? I wouldn't mind hearing it from both perspectives, actually, from the technical perspective and also from the CEO's perspective.
I guess what I would say is those 3 basic principles should be being applied for any documents produced inside the city. So where we've sought to use AI, and I would be disappointed if we hadn't used it already, to be honest. And then, Chair, it goes to the definition. So in the financial reporting you've just seen, we would have been using hardcore business intelligence tools to pull those graphs out and to manipulate those data to give you that information. Now, that is, in effect, a version of AI. But from my point of view, from the whole of organisation point of view, those 3 rules should be applied for council documents or any other council meeting documents or any other documents.
I think perhaps a little bit more clarification on that, because I don't think anyone expects when a financial report is derived that but if the conclusions that are informed from that, the recommendations that come from that are guided by AI, I think would probably want to know that.
Sure.
And that also reminds me of that we had some AI generated images that got put in an annual report without request or without acknowledgement of that.
Yep.
We're just... So I don't know how that gets done, but just that clarity, that transparency every step of the way where it is. And that might seem a bit clunky and it might slow things down, but I think just while we're starting on this journey, it doesn't hurt.
I think that just, through you, Chair, needs to be included in the framework and ultimately a policy-based... I mean, the challenge here is that it's moving so quickly. But I think if we get those guide rails right and we get and you state of those core principles, and when they reflect our framework and the policy, then you make a good point.
Okay, so I've got a slight change to recommendation, but before we get on to that, are there any other questions regarding this presentation report? No? Well, thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much for a good presentation. Okay, so I've just got a slight amendment here requesting that certainly that we note the report, this report, and well, we've already put it into open, it doesn't need to be enclosed, and that the risk management framework, which will go to the Audit and Risk Committee, but I do think it makes sense that it comes back to this committee again, and we can review those elements like the CEO's just referred to and how they are noted in that risk management framework. And I've also requested that we incorporate in the risk profile the risk profiles relating to work health and safety and the environment. Particularly with the environment is the energy usage that will come out of AI. We are recording our energy usage in the city, so just finding out really how significant AI is in that capacity. So I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Wilkinson. So we have, we've just heard our artificial intelligence update. This is a new area for the city, and in our last council meeting in our risk profiling, we identified that technology is an area that we want to be opportunistic in. We are a government. We are not a private business, and I think there is a higher level of responsibility placed on us as a government to consider all the risks that may be involved, the impact on our staff in terms of their thinking changes, you know, how people work in their work health and safety, and also the environment. So I think us allocating kind of like a higher bar makes sense given we are a government on those matters. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this report, either for or against? No? Okay. So all in favour? Great. Thank you. I haven't received any other items, and so with that I close the meeting at 2:45. Thank you.